Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and welcome to a lady coming in from Rhode Island, New York. She's sitting in a building, well, not a building, a house that has been completely gutted and is now complete with a Christmas tree over her left shoulder. As we're recording this is early December. You're probably hearing this late December, maybe early January, but it's an absolute pleasure to welcome to the podcast Chelsea Olsen. How are you, my friend?
Yes, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
It's no, it's great to talk. We've been connected for a little while and come through a mutual connection in Stephen Uman, who's been on the podcast a couple of times, and looking forward to this conversation because you and I have very similar backgrounds in terms of our approach to sales leadership, running programs and so forth for sales teams. So as we were talking before we press record, we have no idea where this is going to go, but I'm sure it's going to be of a valuable conversation. So you are the founder, Chelsea, of CLOHZ, but you're also, did I pronounce that right?
You did. Yes, good job.
So I'd love to know a bit of the origin of that name, but also you're a sales consultant specializing in social selling, LinkedIn trainer, and also a fractional chief revenue officer as well. So you're doing many things, wearing many hats, all related to sales. Before we jump in, a couple of questions. One, can you tell us a bit about the background of the name, CLOHZ,
Mhm.
and a little bit about your background that has led you to working with teams and organizations now, particularly around pipeline development, and differentiation in the marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. So close has to do with deals closing. You ever hear of coffees for closers?
Hmm.
Glengarry, Glen Ross? Okay.
Yeah,
So coffees for closers is where this idea originated. And I decided to use a spin on the word, and that's why it's spelled oddly, CLOHZ. So close, like deals closing.
nice. Love it. Love it.
And yeah, so we started this agency about 8 years ago. Um, Honestly, like it started very loosely, where I was working as head of sales for an ad agency. And at the time, I developed this playbook and I started coaching other teams on the playbook. And from there, it just grew. And I started to take on roles fractionally, consulting, and then eventually needed to, branch out and have the agency. For a while, we did lead generation, we did
Hmm.
done for you services. And then by 2023, it was more on the side of enablement and training so I could really help more teams that way.
Yeah. And if you go right back to into sales, so in an ad agency, obviously you work your way through that to become a head of sales. What was it
Mhm.
about sales that got you intrigued in the first place? Was it something that you had gone through college or grown up as a little girl thinking, I want to be in sales? Or was it something that you fell into?
It's a good question. My father was an entrepreneur, so he owned a commercial real estate agency.
Yeah.
He was an appraiser, and I always watched him having freedom of his time. And he worked really hard. So he'd wake up 5 a.m., he'd be working all the time, but he did have an office at home. And I always loved that. And I always really loved money. So when I was young, I would do everything I could to make money. I did lemonade stands, I would clean cars, I would, rake leaves. I had a job by 14. Like I was always working and trying to save my money. So I think it just kind of was instilled in me early on, and it's part of how I was born. I just like to do these things. But I actually got started when I was getting my finance degree. So I have a degree in finance. And while I was in college, I started doing door-to-door sales, alarm
Hmm.
sales. And the money was incredible. So I was doing door-to-door alarm sales. I also worked as a sales manager of a fitness center, and just seeing the upside of how much money you can make in the industry, that kind of sparked my interest even more. When I graduated, I worked in banking. So I was in the banking and financial services industry for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And I didn't get into advertising until 2017, but through that time, I also owned a company on the side. So I worked for JP Morgan Chase and Capital One, and then I owned an experiential marketing agency, always side hustling, always working. So I had marketing experience, but I didn't work for like, let's say, an actual ad agency until 2017.
Wow. So finance, experiential
Hmm.
marketing,
Yeah, don't even.
door-to-door sales.
But it's like all spread out. It's I've been in sales for 20 years.
Yeah.
So it seems like you jump from job to job, and it's like, no, like I was young. Things happen over a timeline. I've owned different companies over the years. I've helped start up many other companies that I didn't own. So I've had just such diverse experience. And,
Yeah.
the marketing and sales thing, they're so different and people confuse them, but I fell into both
Mm.
kind of naturally. And
Yeah.
it's kind of how I got into social selling, which is something I knew nothing about until like 2020.
Yeah. It's so with all that finance, marketing, sales, side hustles, looking
Mhm.
back, was there, and maybe even throw in watching your dad work as a in commercial real estate, was there a overarching key lesson that has been almost like the North Star for you that's driven you forward that you think has been the catalyst for your success? Like, is there a defining value or defining principle around selling that you've kind of unveiled as you've gone through your career?
There is. So, as a woman who worked in finance in the early 2000s, I would say, back then it was different. And the way I was taught to sell really didn't fit who I was as a person.
Okay.
So, I kind of always felt like I was masking and wearing a mask and having to sell this very hard way. Um, as I've grown and gotten older, I've been able to lean into who I authentically am and still find a way to be successful in sales. So I think the value is being able to learn how to sell authentically
Yeah.
as yourself, right? And not hammer out this specific methodology or have to follow this script, but really just genuinely being able to understand your buyers, what problems they have, and then being able to then sell the solution, but knowing that you're actually solving the problem. And that
Mm.
to me is like how I've been able to become successful in sales. I've tried everything. I've been trained and coached by corporate. I've done all the things. And I think as a woman, being able to do it in a softer way has been really great over the years because in the beginning it felt weird. It felt
Did it
very
feel,
strange.
and when you say it felt weird, and you said you felt as if there was a mask on, was it because you're almost forced to follow a methodology? This is the way we've always done it. This is how we do things here at XYZ organization. So you need to follow the process that you
Yeah.
couldn't be yourself.
Yeah, it was a lot of hoorah and like listen, mortgage environments, finance environments, there a lot of like male push-ups, cold calling, hitting the phones, right? Like a lot of testosterone. I don't have any really testosterone, so it was just a lot of cortisol and stress. And I worked in New York City and it was a lot. Um, and yeah, that just was not me. I'm a surfer. I'm pretty laid back and it was different. But things have changed. I will say that. There has been a major shift from let's say like 2010 to even now in
Yeah.
2025. So,
And so with that shift in the change, because rightly, well, rightly or wrongly, but it's true that buyers are even more educated now than
mhm,
they ever have been. And I say to teams that I work with that before your customer potentially engages with you anyway, they've done a lot of research. They probably know more about you than you think they do, right? So how has in your perspective buyers' behaviors changed the way that now sellers go into the market to, I guess, provide value to solve problems, or at least put their sign up and say, hey, at least have a conversation with me. Because the old way of doing stuff, some companies might think, well, it still works, and maybe it does in certain quarters, but
mhm,
for the vast majority of buyers, they're a lot more educated now, and
mhm.
they're not going to be open to maybe some of the old sales tactics that perhaps were around 2010.
Yeah, you just said my whole value prop. This is the foundation of my entire business. And this is what I talk about. Because buyers back in the day, they were forced to listen to salespeople. They didn't have the access they have now. And I say your buyers are 70 to 80% through their buying decision before they ever talk to a sales rep, right? They're
Mm,
consuming 13 plus pieces of content before they talk to a rep. They are doing their own research. That's what they're doing. But back in the day, it wasn't like that.
mm,
So if you did cold call someone and they were even slightly interested in what you had to say, they were forced to kind of listen to you. They didn't have another outlet. They couldn't just go online. They couldn't pull up their phone and just search and do their own research. They
yeah,
couldn't. So the buying process was different. The buyers, they were more open to you. They had to listen to the salesperson because they had to get the information so they can make their decisions. Now they
yeah.
don't really need you.
Mm,
They really don't. You do need to do good discovery. You need to do good demos. Yes, all of that. But outbound has shifted tremendously, and teams are not acknowledging this, and they are not supporting buyers in their buyer journey. What they're doing is they are pushing these old ways and clinging to them instead of realizing my digital presence needs to support the buyer journey so they could and like aid in that research that they're doing, right?
mm,
Everything from the way they speak, their headlines on their websites, their LinkedIn profiles. They need to think like their buyers when they're sending messages. They need to stop sending long scripted messages. They need to realize people don't read. Like
yeah.
they want to just, they have 5 seconds. They want quick little scans of information to absorb to make decisions. They're not understanding the psychology of their buyers. And that is the number one thing I focus on. I mean, I'm not going to talk anymore, but I could literally talk about this for hours.
But this is a podcast. You have to talk.
I know, but like I go deep and like I have newsletters on this and I could share a good newsletter with the audience if they're interested, but I go into the buyer psychology and the brain and how the attention works today. So I'll stop there, but it is really important and I feel so strongly and I don't understand why very smart leaders, they just don't see it.
Well, it's actually interesting because I'm very much along the same vein, and I would like to talk about that if that's okay. And as we said
Yeah.
before we press record, hey, we don't know where this is going to go, but wherever it does, it's
No,
going to be
the
valuable.
tangent.
Because as you were talking there, Chelsea, I'm thinking the training that I went through when I was in sales, both as a sales rep but also as a sales leader, it was very much geared around, and probably to some degree, other than the training that we do, is geared around products and services. So very inwardly focused, and then almost like the push out. Let's go and be the experts in the market, create credibility in the market, so our customers want to buy our product and our service. Customers are not interested in your product. They're
Mm,
simply not. They're not waking up thinking, "Oh, I think I might go and call Chelsea today because I reckon I need that widget or I need that thing that she sells." What they're looking for is, I've got a problem. Sometimes I don't know that I've got a problem. There's a feeling or a gnawing sense that something's not quite right. Who can I go and talk to that might be able to categorize that, diagnose that, and then potentially provide a solution? So just talk a little bit about before we jump into the depths of biopsychology, because that could be
mhm.
like it's like the rabbit hole
No,
in
I don't
the.
think they want to hear it. It's gonna get very scientific. But
That's
yeah, let's
okay.
talk about the other thing.
That's okay. But why do you think there are organizations out there that are still persisting with, hey, we have the best product, so therefore we've got to train our salespeople on everything about our product and our service?
You might not like the answer. We live in a world where people's egos are so strong. And the people that build these products and build these companies, they cannot see past themselves. It's all ego. It's, oh, look at how amazing we are. Look at what we built. I go in and I'll do something so basic like a SWOT analysis. And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, let's look at your competitors. What do they do well? You have your unique values here
yeah.
and you have your strengths, but what do your competitors do well? Nothing. I'm like, nothing. They've been in business for 15 years, but they have nothing. They have no strengths. You have no weaknesses. Oh, okay. Right? Where is the introspection? And I think this comes down to human beings. Like the lack of introspection as a society, as each individual member, each human being is a problem in our culture because we don't look inward.
Mm,
We're not evaluating what we're doing, right? It goes so deep And it's been a problem. It's been a problem as an owner of a marketing agency, to be honest, because everyone thinks everything's so great, right? They can't look past themselves and it creates problems. And that's why they are in the situation they're in because they don't have
Yeah,
empathy. They're not looking outward and then they're not looking inward when they need to at the real stuff.
yeah. And so they're not appreciating that perhaps they are not as good, or their messaging is not as good, or their product or their service is not as good as perhaps they think it is. So they're projecting out on the marketplace that, hey, we are the bee's knees of everything. And in fact, they're wondering why the customers are lining up in droves to knock down their doors to buy what they've got to offer.
Yeah, pretty much. And then when someone like me comes in and I try to gracefully and softly awaken them to the fact that all their messaging is focused on them and not the buyer, right?
Mm,
And that maybe there are some things they need to work on with the product, right? Or the customer experience or whatever. Like it becomes, whoa, resistance, right?
mm,
She doesn't know what she's talking about because they don't want to do that work. So now
yes.
in my own pre-qualification process, I really do look at people that I'm speaking to and see if they have the capacity to recognize all aspects of the business and to change. That's the big thing.
On a human level, which means they've got to maybe look at the baby they've created or the product they've got that they've positioned in the marketplace in a certain way, and maybe understand that it is not as great as perhaps we want people to believe. So there are some things that need to be changed and some tweaking needs to be done,
Yeah.
which means they've got to get their ego and put that to the side a little bit to say, well, how can we make this better? Because ultimately, what should happen is I should be in a position to want to be more of service to the community that I want to serve, not try to get more products just so I can hit my bottom line. Now that comes, but the order in which you do that is very important. How do you, when you look at that, and this is a question for people who are listening to this who perhaps have got issues trying to penetrate a marketplace because they're dealing with perhaps customers that they can see there's a gap, but the customer they're talking with doesn't see what the gap is. So they've got ego on the customer side as well.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that, just pairing it right back. When you're dealing with customers, potential customers that maybe have ego as maybe a driving force, what are some things that have worked for you to maybe just open the window just a little bit so that you can sort of slip in there?
Da I mean, I'm data driven, right? I'm a math nerd. So anything I can do, I will do to get the data out. What's the conversion rates? How many leads are you generating? What's your win rate? Like, how many people are coming to the website? How many,
Yeah,
okay, you did a post about how awesome you are. How many leads generated? How much this? Like, I always try to drive it back to metrics and then benchmarks. I
yeah.
feel like that's been successful. But it is a really hard thing to crack. Also, this mentality, which I think we should call out, of people feeling like the customer owes them something. You just said in the beginning, people don't wake up saying, "Oh, I let me see Chelsea's company or, Darren's company." Like they don't care.
Yeah.
And understanding that the buyers are so overwhelmed right now and their nervous systems are overwhelmed and they don't owe you any attention. They're seeing 10,000 ads a day. Like
Mm,
your job is to cut through to help them, right? Cut through
yeah.
that noise, grab their attention, lead them down the path, and help them.
Mm,
So thinking that people owe you a response to an email, a cold email, or a DM or a cold call, it's like no one owes you anything. How can you capture attention for the right person at the right time?
mm,
That is what you should be thinking.
yeah. Now, um, you know what the follow-up question to that is?
I don't know.
Huh? Well, how do we do that? How do we do that, Chelsea? How do we cut through when it's such a noisy environment, when we've
I know.
got organizations and people running organizations that are, rightly or wrongly, quite ego driven because they believe they've got the solution that's going to solve people's issues. They've got the solution that's going to solve the company's issues in terms of their conversion rate or the attraction strategies to try and get more customers to hit their website, etc., etc. How do we cut through that? Because it's there's a lot of sameness out there. There's a lot of well, Push marketing is still huge. I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but I get countless numbers of emails per day, which by the way are not customized. They're just hey, they're hi, they're just really random and it's just rubbish. But also platforms like LinkedIn, there's a lot of that sort of stuff that happens as
Yeah.
well, where it's just a pitch fest. Even when you get a connection request, thinking, oh, well, okay.
No,
So
it is like literally is. I love that. I'm gonna start stealing that. I might post it tomorrow. It's a pitch fest. No,
it's
it's
just,
bad at this point. I will agree.
it's hideous. And I get a lot, just full transparency, I get a lot of, hey, I can help you triple or quadruple or 10x your podcast subscriber base in 60 days.
You're like, you don't even know what my subscriber base is. They don't have
No,
access to that information. So how can you tell me that?
correct, correct.
Just blowing smoke.
That's
Thinking
it.
they're capable. That's the other thing. Do they actually think they're capable? Yeah, it's hard. I mean, we're both sales trainers. So even us, for me, I'm going to be transparent. It is very hard for me to say, I'm going to work with you and 100% I'm going to 2x your revenue. I can't
Yeah,
say that.
no,
First of all, I've been doing this for 8 years. And even then, when I'm like, okay, I won't work with a company unless they have this lead source in here so I can do attribution. Okay, I go in, I might train for what? 6 weeks, 3 months, maybe one day. It depends what the program is. I don't 100% know all the time on that
no,
attribution. So these companies that are making these claims, we can round about, I think a 30% increase in revenue is fair at this point from what I've seen over the years. But I can't guarantee any of this.
mm,
So like those are red flags in itself, right? No one
yeah,
no one knows that. But yeah, like with the noise thing, it's hard. How do you grab attention? It's a lot of little motions that need to be put in place. It's not one thing. It's not one
mm,
ad. It's not one message. It's not one email campaign. It's pulling levers, all different levers. So having humans in the loop, doing a ton of personalized outreach. We're going back to the old days on that, where go door to door. Like, I don't even care. Bring cookies to the office, try to get in someone's office. Like, do whatever you need to do to differentiate yourself.
yeah,
Send a video message on LinkedIn. That's personalized, right? Because you're kind of awkwardly now videotaping yourself. You feel weird. The lighting's not perfect. Send the video, right? Do the thing that people wouldn't do. Send a handwritten note. Like do whatever it needs to get done to cut through the noise by being
mm,
a human being. And then on the push marketing side, yeah, we're still going to need to do large scale campaigns as long as the company is not super niched down and doesn't have a small TAM, right? If they have a very small lead pool, we can't burn those leads. But if you have a
yeah,
large TAM, you're fine. So go push. But even that you have to do in a certain way. So
yeah,
they want this like one thing answer, and it's like a whole revenue system that I built and it works, but it's not like one thing that I can tell someone other than do some self-reflection, simplify the messaging. Don't write two or three sentences. More than that is bad. Just only two to
mm.
three sentences on all outreach for right now. I mean, that would be my advice. But other than that, it's a lot of little things.
I love that because a lot of people are looking for I guess, the elixir, the
Yeah.
magic pill that's going to make all the difference. And they think, oh, if I just put this out, people are just going to come to me in droves because it's just got these words have got some magical spell that's just going to influence and put people into some sort of trance so they can't help themselves but come to me. I always talk about the
Yeah.
fact that you've got to have a sense of urgency, but also a sense of patience. But then the third thing is to remove yourself from the outcome so that you don't know. You might think that you've got a solution for a customer, or you might think that a customer or potential customers is dealing with a particular problem, but you don't know until you actually reach out to them. And so being disassociated from any pressure of having to grab that customer because they look really attractive to you is important because the last thing you want to be portrayed as is a desperate, I guess, marketer or a desperate salesperson or a desperate founder. You just want to be there and say, hey, if we're a good fit, awesome. If not, hey, awesome. But I've built a connection for future.
And yeah, you don't want to be thirsty, but then I get it because I was a seller for many, many years. And I know, I call it survival selling. And I actually did a post on this recently. And we can bash people for doing cringy sales and marketing things all day long, but it's not coming from a place of malice. They are trying to survive in a world that is way too expensive. I mean, we just
Mm,
talked about how expensive it is. Like here on Long Island, it's insane.
mm,
So I understand why they have that sense of urgency. And I work with sellers. So it's hard. I do sometimes tell them, like, get another income, especially junior sellers, because when you bring that energy, they can feel it.
mm.
And you need to learn how to hold space for the process and for the buyer,
Yeah,
especially in high ticket sales. If you're
yeah,
selling something 150,000 plus, you can't be like, you need to, okay, I'm holding space, let me listen. And that's hard when you can't feed your kids. So you might need to go bartend or
yeah,
do something else. Go stock
yeah.
shelves at Trader Joe's. Like, I don't care what it is. This is why I side hustled. And people are like, how'd you have all these jobs? Well, it's expensive to live.
Yeah. And you probably say, you know what, I was driven, but you understood that you couldn't necessarily put all the eggs in one basket either.
No, and even now I can't. I'm a single mom. I have two kids. I need multiple incomes. Like we
Yeah,
need at least two incomes because I don't have them. So like I just need two. That's like basic math. And then on
yeah,
top of that, I need my other revenue streams. So
yeah,
you have to start thinking, how can I have multiple revenue streams, even if you're an employee?
yeah.
Yeah, they miss that. Sellers miss that.
So with that, because I do want to jump back into the buyer psychology, because when
Sure.
you were talking about that, there was this like glint in the eye that said, "Oh, let's go and talk about this."
No.
Um, so Chelsea, you've got a salesperson who perhaps is in a B2B space. They do sell big ticket items. They've got long sales cycles, and they're under pressure from their sales leaders, right? Sales
Mhm.
leaders often sit in the office, navel gazing on the spreadsheets and do the forecasting to say, "What's your close strategy? Get this done. You need to do whatever it takes." When you do the training, when you're doing working with organizations, how do you help sellers, irrespective of whether they're young or whether they're mature, manage, I guess, the expectations of their sales directors with the numbers, but
Mhm.
also having I guess, the attitude, the approach, the energy that doesn't come across to customers as desperation. And I often call it the commission breath desperation that
Mhm.
comes across because customers will sense that, but also maintaining their grace through the whole process. I know and I don't know if there's a single answer to that, but I love your perspective because it's something that a lot of sellers have to continually grapple with, particularly as we get to the end of a quarter or the end of the financial year,
Yeah.
which for many is end of December.
Yeah, I was like, right now.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, on the leadership side, I feel like the disconnect does occur when leadership does not have insight on the daily activities of the salespeople. So they'll come in and they'll be like, well, what's in the pipe? What are you closing? How can we push this to close, right? They're only seeing that middle piece or maybe that end piece, right? But they need to know what's happening day to day.
mm,
And I know a lot of people aren't going to like this, but this comes down to accountability, right? So if leadership can see that their salespeople are doing the work 9 to 5, they're doing the emails, they're doing the calls, they're doing the things they're supposed to be doing, engaging
yeah,
on LinkedIn, that's in an activity tracker of some sort. And that's getting reported back to leadership and then maybe up the chain. That eases them a bit because I've been in sales leadership and I can tell you if I don't know what you're doing day to day, to me, it doesn't matter necessarily what's in the pipe. Like there are a lot of organizations, and I'm sure you've seen this, they kind of just say like, oh, I don't know what they're doing, but like they've got to go get deals. They're going to events, they're doing this. Like I hired them with a backpack of leads on their back. Like we're good. And I'm like, but no, no, what are they doing every day?
yeah,
Where's their leads list? I mean, the basic fundamentals here.
mm,
And you see this in enterprise sales. You'll see this in like mid-market because they're not SDRs. They don't have the leads list. And I'm like, why? Why don't they have 10 accounts they're working and they have a list that we pulled from Sales Nav
yeah,
or Zoom? So I think the insight's a big thing. The accountability is huge, and seeing what they're doing every day is important. Sometimes leadership's just filled with assholes too. And no, you can't do anything about that. They're going to be
Well,
dicks and they're going to say, "No, we need to 3x revenue from last year and I need 3 million in your book instead of 1." And you're like, "How?" They're like, "I don't know, just do it." Hence why you need multiple revenue streams, right?
yeah, that's right.
I mean, let's be real.
That's a very may I say it's a very Australian way of looking at it. Just
Maybe
absolute
I should be
dicks.
Australian. Come surf, I'll have a good time. But that's the truth. Like I've worked for people and I'm like, how the fuck do you think we're pulling this off? Like
Yeah.
we're not. Like you just threw a dart at a number and we're like 5 million. You're like, it's November. We're at
But it's
2.
also interesting that those same people who put that expectation out, they're also the same people that never go and see a customer because
No.
they're too busy managing upwards or looking at spreadsheets and doing forecasts, but they're not actually adding value or even training or coaching their team.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think? Do you think sales leaders should be selling?
Well, I think the sales leaders should be actually creating an environment where their sellers can do the selling, and the sales
Hmm.
leadership is the one, they're the people that should be coaching, mentoring to enable their sales team to do the selling. Because I'm very big on the sales leader knowing their place and not coming in on the white horse, not coming in doing the
Yeah.
selling for them, because often that will disintermediate the salesperson in the eyes of the customer. And we want
Hmm.
the customers to be going through the salesperson, not coming to the sales leader as the decision maker.
That makes sense. Some people feel like even like, and I don't agree with it, but like even the chief revenue officer should, have a little book. And I'm like, no, I don't agree with that. But I do think at a certain point, there has to be some type of conversation where someone in leadership should have been selling in the past 5 years. Like they need to understand how this has changed just from that personal perspective. They need to know what it feels like, the rejection, what it's really like out there.
Yeah.
If you only have people that have been doing it, and they were incredible, and not to knock this, but if you were incredible in 2015 or even 2010, listen, I existed back then too. I was selling, but it's not the same.
No.
So you need, and this is where diversity is important, right? We need
Yeah.
different voices in the room
Yeah.
and different perspectives in leadership and people who have been going through it at different stages because it's all valuable, right? What
Mm.
these lessons learned from 20 years ago, so valuable. But also people that have gotten their butts kicked for the past 3 or 4 years by automation, AI, and all this noise, that's valuable too. So how can they mix that? I think that should be a question that more organizations think about. And then to answer your question about the sellers, I think it really like you do probably need to get a second stream of income for yourself because
Mm.
it's just unless you have a cushion enough base and you're comfy enough in your base, then it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
It
And
really is.
and and when you think about sales cycles, it's rare that you're gonna have a sales cycle that's like 10 days, 30 days, right? You might every now and then
Yeah.
catch lightning in a bottle. You happen to be in the right place at the right time for that buyer who's in their buying cycle. But for the most part, these big ticket sales are going to take long time to nurture. So
They will. And some leadership understands that and they'll give you, it depends. Like some of them will do a good base salary. It depends because if you're an SDR, you're low on the totem pole, you're the one hitting the phones. Like that's where the second stream of income really matters. If
yeah.
you're higher up, you're an AE, you have a better base now. So now
Mm.
you're not going to have that survival sales situation because you're okay,
Yeah.
right? They're the junior people I worry about. I do worry about the kids today, and their ability to take on sales jobs. I've tried to hire so many of them and they're like, I don't want that job. Like, no,
What?
they don't want to do it.
Why not?
I think for them, it's just not enough money. It's a ton of rejection. Um, it creates anxiety. I don't think they know how to cope with that. They also don't really know how to dial a phone. So we have that. I mean, it is, but we do still need the SDR who can
Yeah.
do personalized outreach.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've got a lot of colleagues that run businesses that do that, and they always talk about the fact that it's hard to get good people, but once you've got them, and there's certain characteristics they look for, it's the tenacity, it's the resilience, it's the ability to disassociate to say that If people are
Yeah.
rejecting, not rejecting you, they're actually rejecting themselves or the offer, or that's just not the right time. Whatever the meaning is you want to give it, but just keep going. I also am concerned about, I guess, the generation coming through and question,
Yeah.
certainly in Australia, it's probably the same in the States, what parents and what schools are teaching kids in terms of resilience. Like we went through a phase here in Australia where every child basically got a trophy. Like they'll in things at school they'll do a little cross country run and there's no first ribbon. Everybody gets a ribbon, right? Because everybody is equal, right? But if little Johnny came last and Sally won, then the kids know who won and who didn't. But according to the school, everyone's a winner, right? What does that teach your kids when they get into adulthood? It's
Yeah.
um it's not great. It's not great. So we need resilience. You need certain
No, I
characteristics.
completely agree. I remember like my daughter, she was in soccer and there was this tournament. It was freezing. We were outside for like 4 hours and she came in like fourth. Her team came in like fourth. They're like, we have to stay for awards. I said, awards? You lost. What you don't, I'm like, you don't get a trophy. And how could you say that to her? I'm like, because they lost. Can we go home now? Like, I'm cold. I'm starving. Like, we can go home, take the L, because in life, you're going to have to take a lot of L's, like a
That's it.
lot. There's something you keep saying, which I think is so interesting. And it's something that's come up a lot for me too. Disassociation.
Yep.
Big word. Like, and I don't hear it a lot in the sales arena.
Okay.
That's something like you kind of teach on or
Yeah, it is, and
yeah.
it's part of I guess the resilience strategy because if you've been in sales for a while, you know that not every post is going to be a winner. Not every customer you speak to is going to turn into a converted customer.
Hmm.
And don't take it personally, right? So having the ability to say, okay, I know what I stand for. We've got good products, but I'm here to be of service to a community, be of service to a customer, be of service to an industry. And if I go out that doing that, I know that not every customer is going to turn into a converted revenue line. So the ability to disassociate from any pressure of having to get that, it also almost psychologically means I'm not going to come across with this commission breath. I'm not going to give you a sense of desperation that I really need this sale in order to make my number. It's I can walk into any conversation and be really comfortable with the value I'm going to add, but ultimately, if we're not a match and you don't see value, then you're going to make a decision. That's okay. I may not agree with it, but it's okay, right? So
Yeah.
it means that I can sort of take a step back, and if we do business, awesome, right? If we don't, awesome. Maybe what I have done though is I've planted a seed for a future interaction where I've left you thinking, he's not a bad, he didn't try to close me at every opportunity.
Yeah.
He's planted some seeds, so maybe I'll keep him top of mind when I'm ready to buy, or I actually know somebody who may be a better fit
Right.
for my organization. So I'm going to connect those guys, and maybe that's what's going to happen.
Love that. I love the referral because I was thinking that too. I'm like it creates such a referral opportunity. But also when you do it, right, and you even do it with your hands, you're detaching. So your value, your sense of self is
Mm,
not associated with the outcome, but then it's also not associated with your role. And if we go back further on that, if you own the company, let's say you adopt this model and this thought process of disassociation, then this product or this company you built isn't you.
mm,
You don't have value because you built this, you have value because
yeah,
you exist. So now you
yeah,
can look at it differently, right? And I
great.
think that's such a beautiful word, and we should talk about it more in sales.
I agree. I agree. And this is what comes back to I guess, the training, the psychology of how organizations
Yeah.
try to, I guess, condition, for want of a better term, their sales force is they're almost indoctrinated to drink the Kool-Aid, thinking that they've got the best product. And it went back to what you said before. When they do a SWOT analysis, they look at all of their strengths and don't consider we don't have any weaknesses. We
Right?
can't be.
What?
We
Yeah.
can, what do you mean? And strengths of my competitors? No. One of the things I do with training when it comes to creating a unique value proposition is I get the teams to do a SWOT analysis of their major competitor through the eyes of their customer, not through their own eyes, through the eyes of the customer, which tells
Mm,
me how much do they know about their customer and how does their customer see their competitors.
mm,
Because that can give you some very, very interesting information that you can build. and maybe some strategies to build around how you can minimize some of those weaknesses that customers see as your competitors having, but also maximize or capitalize on some of the weaknesses, right? And do exactly the same thing through your customer's eyes back, looking at your own organization. What are the strengths and weaknesses that they see, not what you see? Because you're going to be biased. Let's be honest.
100%. Yeah, that's very good. I'm going to steal that one. Can people do it?
It's challenging. And the reason I say it's challenging is because they're so indoctrinated to
Mhm.
believe we are the best, we have got to be better than our competitors. And unfortunately, a lot of them will try to belittle their competitors and try to build their own organization up.
Yeah,
And that's a recipe for disaster. Don't ever do that. But it is challenging. But the ones that can do it, and it takes a bit of practice because it means a changing thinking and change of perspective. It also means you've got to really have a good hard look at your own organization and your own way of doing things and say, you know what? Maybe we're not as good as perhaps we thought we were, or maybe we're not as good as we're portraying out there in the marketplace. But by having that analysis, maybe there's some things that could be identified that could be the difference that makes all the difference.
right. And that assumes that buyers are even looking at either, right? Like, like let's be real. It's like assuming that a buyer is even looking at your company and your competitors.
Yeah, yeah,
How many people are actually looking these days and where are people's attention and how many
mm,
people are actually giving you attention depending upon what you sell?
yeah, totally, totally. So let's talk about. I want to come back to this buyer psychology, all right? Because we've talked a lot about selling, being resilient, disassociating, and stuff like that. Um, how deep do you want to
How deep do you want to go?
go? Well, I love psychology. I love going into the brain and how people make decisions. If people are listening to this and they're thinking, what does this actually mean? What do you mean I've got to understand the psychology of my buyers? How is that going to help me selling my product, selling my service? I'm under pressure to hit a target. I've got to get this into as many hands as possible. What do you say to those people? Because in order to do that effectively, you've got to understand what makes your customers tick. What are some of the buying
Mhm.
signals? What are some of the behaviors? What are some of the, I guess, the triggers that will invoke some form of action on behalf of a customer?
Yeah, if I were to keep this pretty basic, what I would say is one hand, just realizing how inundated their brains are, how overwhelmed their brains and nervous system are, and just be aware of that, that you're competing with everything else going on in their life, not just your competitors, you're competing with everything.
Mm,
Everything that you have on a daily basis, they have. Now, separate to that, foundations, problems, going back to the problems that they have that you can actually solve and being realistic about what problems you can actually solve. Sometimes I think companies are saying they can solve a lot more things than they actually can. So looking at what problems do they have and then using language that would feel safe and relatable. So if someone's brain is seeing all these ads and all these texts and all these emails in order to cut through that and for the brain to acknowledge your message and feel like it's safe and something they can read or resonate with, you have to make it easy for them. So,
mm.
how can you then communicate with someone, even if they're from Harvard at like a fifth grade reading level, to cut through that 5 second layer, that blink,
Yeah.
right? Like that quick little glimpse that they're going to give you. How can you break through that in order to capture attention? How can we simplify?
I love that. And as you're talking about level 5 or a 5-year old.
Fifth grade reading level, which would be 10-year-old.
Okay. It's interesting because I often say to people that if you can talk to a 5-year old in a language that 5-year old understands and have that 5-year old share that message with a third person, have them understand it, you're a master communicator.
It is true. My kids know what I do and they say it very well.
Yeah.
And it is a good test. I have when I take my clients through trainings, I take them through this grandma and grad test, and I have them explain to me what they do as if they were speaking to grandma or a recent grad. So we start with grandma and then we go to the recent grad. And then we take their message and we ask ChatGPT if grandma could understand.
Yeah.
And we run their LinkedIn profiles through ChatGPT and we ask if grandma could understand. And their websites, could grandma understand within 5 seconds of landing on this page what you do? Now, this is impossible with tech guys. They
Mm.
just think like they think I'm an idiot when I'm like sometimes like they're telling me what they do and I'm like, okay, explain to me like I'm an idiot. What do you do? Like I think people think I'm dumb because I'm always like, explain to me like an idiot. Like explain to me like I'm your grandmother because I they don't realize how confusing they're making something. And then I get to the bottom of it and they're like, I'm like, oh, you do cold email campaigns? Like, are you kidding me? The way they explain these things
Yeah.
is confusing. If you don't
Yeah.
have clarity, confusion kills all deals. Like, you're out before you started.
And that's a key point because a confused mind will never buy. And
No.
so if and when you're talking about this, and I love the fact you talk about a fifth grade and keeping it as if you're talking to your grandmother. Some people might look at that and say no, because that says that makes us look average or basic or not strategic, and that's we want to be seen in the marketplace as the leader, the piece de
Yeah.
resistance, right?
No, for
It's
sure.
but but being that potentially is going to prevent you from getting access to the revenue stream that you need in order to keep the business flourishing and growing and hiring more people. So get out, it comes back to the ego again, doesn't it?
Yes, this is literally the root cause of, I would say 90% of business problems is ego because I would like to say clear communication, but I do say it's always that because they are so attached to appearing this certain way and professional. Like, what does that even mean, by the way? But they
Yeah,
have to be this certain way and they have to speak as if they're writing for an English professor and appear this way. And now they're killing deals. So the joke's on you. And it's
yeah,
fine. I'm not shaming them. I get it.
yeah,
You can't always be like as raw as like me or like I mean honestly, like I've thrown a lot of it out the window. Just naturally just don't care. But you get to a certain point where you don't.
yeah.
You're not going to
We,
lose customers. Everyone's a human being. And if you
well,
lose stuck-up customers or stuck-up prospects, you might lose like I've lost a couple, I'm sure, but I've gained a hell of a lot more.
yeah, by being real, not pretending.
Yeah.
I was
But then you risk not being professional there, and so I don't know.
Yeah, but that's a perception, isn't it? It's like, well, hang on. And it was interesting. I was watching an old clip of Les Brown last night, and it was actually on, and then I followed up with a podcast episode he did with Tom Bilyeu about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And Les was talking. He had when he was a kid, he and his twin. He was considered to be the dumb twin, right?
Hmm.
He was told that he was mentally retarded, right? And that was almost like it was who he became pretty much until he went into a classroom one day, and it wasn't even in a class he was supposed to be. He was looking for his friend, and the teacher in that class, a guy called Mr. Washington, said, "Les, go to the whiteboard or go to the blackboard and write something or do a maths problem." I said, "No, sir, I'm not in here, and don't you understand? I can't do this because I'm mentally retarded." And I said, "Don't you ever say that again." And he said, and this is what I wanted to bring out: don't let other people's opinions of you become your reality.
Hmm.
Which comes back then to that power of disassociation to say, well, what you think of me, it'd be great if you liked me. And this has come also to the professional element. I'll be me. Now, whether we resonate or not, that's okay. I'm not going to try to get you to like me just so we can have a transaction. I'm going to be
Right.
me. Take it or don't take it, but your opinion of me will not affect what I do tonight, what I do tomorrow, what I do the next day. I thought that was really powerful, and I've always remembered that because I heard him talk about that about 10 years ago, and I thought, that's so true. It's so true. So as sellers, we've got to remember that we have a solution to many problems, but not everybody's going to want that solution, and not everybody's going to need that solution. Our job is to try and figure out who are the ones that want to need that solution to the point where they're going to be ready at the right time for when they're ready to make that buying decision. But whether they do or not, it's up to them.
Did you read the Four Agreements? I know you have
No.
a lot of books. Oh, you got to read it. The Four Agreements of Life. It's like be impeccable with my word, which I mean, you are. But it's all about the other one is not taking things personally. And that goes for all aspects of life.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, look at the Four Agreements. But yeah, and the other thing is too, if you've done the inner work, right? And you know that you hold yourself accountable. You have good moral standing, like you have values, you have integrity, you don't lie. You know that you're a good person in a sense,
Mm.
right? Like you like who you are. Then if other people don't, it's okay because you are living with you.
Mm.
God knows you know who you are. And I think that's where that comes in, right? Because you're so sound within yourself. You're like, all right, you don't like me. That's okay. It's that it doesn't feel like that. But that takes time. Like I remember
It
being
does.
young and not feeling like that at all. Like at all. Just being like, I have to prove my worth and, prove that I'm smart enough. And I think a lot of kids feel like that still.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to what we talked about earlier that often they're told that they can have anything they want. You're perfect the way you are,
Mm,
which is fine, but also understand that you're not always going to win every time. You're not going to hit every time you hit up to the plate to try and hit it out of the park. You're not going to make every post a winner. There are going to be some times when you fall flat on your face, and that's okay. Get up and own it, right?
right. And what did you learn? And learn to take the L. Like when my kids lose, I'm like, okay, you lost. The team was better. And I say it because unless it was like a very tight game, whatever. Like when you lose by 7 points
Yeah.
in a lacrosse game, basketball is different. Like they're a better team typically, right? Like take the L, be able to take ownership of your situations and yeah, teach the kids that.
Yeah.
But I think that's why a lot of times with sellers, the good ones usually come from sports, probably because they're used to taking the rejection, they're used to
Mm.
losing. They can handle it.
Yeah. Then that's part of the process. Part of the process.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so Chelsea, I'd love to ask you, you mentioned Chat GPT a couple of times in this conversation. Love your thoughts on as sales has continued to evolve, and we've talked a lot about lots of things today. How do you see AI in the work that you do, playing a part in selling? Are there people out there that you're working with who are concerned about AI? Is it something that more and more salespeople are grasping with and incorporating into their day-to-day activities? How do you see the future in relation to the world and AI, particularly around sales?
Well, I think a lot of people are like a kid in the candy shop with AI right now and automation, and there's a million tools out there. I actually was doing my own books, which I should not be doing, but I was, and I cut a bunch of programs because I'm like, I don't need all these things, right? It's so easy to just keep buying these tools. I think in the future, first of all, I have absolutely no idea about AI and where it's going. I need to say that. I don't think anyone does. Um, Nobody at my pay grade and mine level anyway. But I think for the future, what would be nice is if we could learn to have more of a balance with AI and automation and use it more as an assistant and keep the human in the loop because at
Mm,
this point, I feel like they're pulling people out. And for some things, they definitely can. Like I run a ton of AI and automation through my business. Don't get me wrong. But there are still some things that require humans, which I believe is sales, because at the end of the day, it's a relationship, right? And
mm,
that emotional intelligence, that wisdom, that empathy, that understanding of where someone's face is moving and how they're relating to what you're saying, that can't really happen with AI. Now, AI tools can help you. They could attach to a Zoom meeting and tell you insights, but yeah, I would hope we keep the humans in the loop, but I truly have absolutely no idea where it's going.
mm. Great answer. Because if you
I
did
don't,
have a clue, we'd call you Chelsea Olsen Nostradamus.
yeah, like I just don't, and I don't think most people do. I'm trying to make as much money as possible before it takes over the world, and that's my true game plan. So, and then I'm going to be on a beach in Barbados surfing, and if you guys want to come down for retreats, like I'll run those, and that's it.
It's gonna be hard to run AI if you're surfing.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna run retreats. Like I think in-person stuff is gonna be really huge for the future.
Yeah.
More people, more community, more in-person events, people craving relationship. That's probably like my next move eventually is to start running some retreats for folks, burnt out
Yeah.
professionals or just professionals who want to take a little weekend retreat or break, go
Yeah.
surf, go hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Awesome.
I'm like, screw
Hey,
AI, let's go surfing.
well, yeah, absolutely. And this is, I mean, I look at it and say, well, uh, if you're not using AI, you're going to be passed by your competitors who are. It's not
Hmm.
something to be. I'm not sure whether you can need to be scared of it because who knows what's going to happen in the future. But if you can use it ethically, use it to be more relevant to your customers, and train it to be more like you, that's the key thing. What I don't like is because some proposals you see, you just know they're written by AI, right? There's no context. It's the language is not right. There's stuff in there that's yeah, that's not legitimate. So you've got to train it. And but if you train it well and you give it context and you and give it more and more information that becomes more and more like you, then you can leverage yourself. And I think that's where you can have a differentiation around AI because it's still going to be you.
Yeah, you're keeping the human in the loop. It's your assistant. I agree with all those things. I mean, I have GPTs in myself. I've had them for a while. I don't know if they fully, I'm like, sometimes I talk to it and I'm like, that is not me, and sometimes they do a good job. So I don't know if I'm the best at training it. Maybe it's me, maybe it's AI's not there, but yeah, we need to definitely keep using it consciously and stop firing people. I'm seeing a lot of people getting fired because they think they could just automate outreach with these cold email campaigns and, using tools like HeyReach and Dripify on LinkedIn. And I'm like, don't keep at least two of your sellers on staff. Like, don't
Yeah,
just fire the whole team of those
yeah,
junior sellers. Don't do it.
yeah. They'll pay for it. They'll pay for it big time. Hey
Yeah,
Chelsea, love this conversation. I am conscious of time, given it's evening where you are in Rhode
it is.
Island. When people wanted to connect with you, where's the best place for them to do that and to find out a little bit more about Chelsea and close?
LinkedIn is the best place to go. Chelsea Olsen. Go to my personal profile. That's where all the magic happens. And I share a lot on LinkedIn, a lot of educational materials and
Yeah,
insights and fun posts. So go check it out.
nice. LinkedIn is the place. I'll put that in the
Mhm.
show notes. So if there was one final last piece of guidance, wisdom, ideas that we haven't covered that you want to leave people with as they move forward in their well, as they hear this, probably moving into now 2026. What's one thing you'd like to leave them with?
Well, I guess I'll speak to, I know this is for sales leadership. Um, I would like to say to the actual sellers out there to protect themselves, like learn as much as they can about the AI and automation. Make sure that you're keeping up with skills. Make sure that you're documenting all of your activities and you're being transparent and you're proving value, daily value. I think that's going to be important because I want to make sure people are keeping their jobs, and
Mm,
that's important to me. And if they need to, I would encourage people to go get a second stream of income and not let that be an ego-driven decision. Just do what you need to do to survive. And then for sales leadership, just I don't know, get out there and start to realize like how hard it is and how challenging it is for your sellers and look at your buyers and be realistic about attention today and how people
mm.
buy.
Yeah,
Come into my school program, I'll teach you. That's what I would say.
love it. There you go.
Yeah.
Good plug. Good plug to finish.
Yeah.
Hey Chelsea, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. It's been a great conversation, and all the best to you in 2026, and keep doing the great work you're doing.
Thanks for having me on.
Been awesome. Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.